Picture that the air is just thick with tension in 15th century Orleans. Despair is just engulfing the people. They are starving, they're fearful, they're desperate. And there's a prophecy that had existed for hundreds of years that a young girl warrior was destined to lead and liberate the people of France.
When you think of Joan of Arc, you think of how she died, and we don't really focus on that. It's more on what she achieved throughout her life, which is quite incredible for how short her life actually was.
Joan of Arc was a rock star of her time. She was a larger-than-life character. Her story then needed to be told in a larger-than-life and epic way.
My hope is that Born to Do This will become a resounding anthem for the many who are looking to find that voice. Joan's words remain an inspiration. I will dare and dare and dare until I die. I'm not afraid. I was born to do this. The Company Theater started in a church basement with a group of eager young actors who were looking to do theater. This is back in the 70s. From there, we grew into this nonprofit organization that we are today. About 5 years ago, I had an inspiration to research about Joan of Arc. And once I did, I realized that's what I wanted to write about for my next piece, my next new musical, which I wanted to make into my most favorite genre, which is the rock opera. So I talked to Michael Hammond about it. We'd collaborated before on Paragon Park the Musical, and he loved the idea, and we both agreed that Mel Corubia would be the ideal person to compose a rock opera. So we went to her, and then I've got this collaborative team, and from there it just launched off into this fantastic experience. It was a real adventure. This is my first sung-through production. I've written other musicals, but it was exciting to have everything sung through because that's my favorite genre. And I felt like Joan's story fit into that genre. So thinking about that, I wanted to try this challenge. I knew that would be a tremendous amount of lyric writing, and lyric writing has to tell the story. So I think storytelling is always at the forefront. And how do you take a gigantic story like Joan of Arc and make it so that it's accessible, attainable, interesting, something that everyone might want to see? So that was the challenge. So the next process was collaboration. That's the key, is to get other people excited about the project, move into what you're thinking, and then kind of expand on those thoughts so that it becomes a beautiful collaborative piece. So that's what we were really looking for over the last 5 years as we worked on it. Then the next step is, how are you going to get a casting call out to get actors excited to perform in it? Audition day is the most exciting day in a way, because that's the day where you're going to find your talent, and the talent's going to bring to life your work. Now, if it's a regular musical, that's something that people know how to prepare for, so they can just say, oh yes, I've seen that show before, I know who the characters are. But this, unless you are historically knowledgeable about Joan of Arc and her comrades and the people who were adversaries and enemies of hers, you may not know how to prepare. So this was a real challenge to get the word out on how exciting this was going to be, what a great piece this was, how this piece was going to speak to women, to people who are really interested in history, and how one person can change the course of history. The prep for this was very rigorous. And once we got the word out of how exciting it was going to be, and through our workshop presented some of the music so that the public could see it, we had an excellent turnout already online, and we're very excited to see who's auditioning for these roles. Joan of Arc in particular is very tough to cast because she has to be a strong singer, she's got to be athletic, she's got to be powerful. So that's an exciting part of the process, and plus getting the music out there in MP3 so that people could learn it and sort of see what the score was going to be like before they came to audition. People often will show up at an audition with a piece that they already know from a show that they already know. This time we said pick something that's in a fun rock or pop genre, such as anything from Jesus Christ Superstar to Legally Blonde. Anything that would represent that type of music was something people could audition with. When I look at an actor, I see potential. So I don't expect somebody coming in to know the part or know what my vision might be for a role. I want to see what their potential is, what they can bring to the table, how they may have a new take on a character that I haven't even perceived yet. And that's one of the most exciting things about casting. So even though any human being is going to go in with preconceived notions, always casting day has surprises, and that's one of the things that's most stimulating about it and I love about it. For this one, there are many male roles in it that are imperative, from people who are kind of obviously villainous and trying to undermine Joan and all of her attempts to save France. There are a lot of men who do not believe in her and want to see her fail. Then there are men who are absolutely on board with her and are her comrade in arms. You meet everyone from her family members on into royalty. So it's a vast array of people, and it's really fun to explore each character and talk about what we're hoping they're going to be like as we, kind of develop this show together. Born to Do This is from a quote. Joan said, "I am not afraid, I was born to do this." Meaning she wasn't afraid to go into battle, she wasn't afraid to try new things. She had never been on a horse, she was illiterate, she could only write her name. She was an ordinary girl who did extraordinary things, and that was because she had faith and she believed in herself.
She defied all the rules of her time, and because of her actions, she became a hero, a legend, a saint. What is a saint? I believe there are saints among us, ordinary people who accomplish extraordinary things through faith and action. There are heroes among us who are not afraid to stand up or speak out. Joan of Arc, through her voice and actions, was able to affect change. One person, one life, changed the course of history.
And I love the fact that we're going to celebrate her, and it's going to be a great piece for people who love history, for people who care about LGBTQ issues, for people who care about women's issues, or just for people who love an adventure and a great rock opera, who love music. So there's so many different facets to it. I don't see how it could be anything but a great success. I can't wait to see what people think of it.
Enough, little soldiers, you have work to do.
John, hello John, this means you too.
Why, like a tunic, have you belted your dress?
So I can win against my brothers and not be a mess.
I think our production of Born to Do This, the Joan of Arc rock opera, is different because we focused on her life and celebrated her accomplishments. And I think when you think of Joan of Arc, you think of how she died, and we don't really focus on that. It's more on what she achieved throughout her life, which is quite incredible for how short her life actually was. I think a highlight of the collaborative process has been working with Mel and Zoe. Zoe has all of these ideas pouring out of her, and it has been incredible to watch what she comes up with. And Mel just writes such incredible music. It's so infectious, and I cannot get it out of my head.
So I've written at least 10 musicals at this point, but I'd never written a rock opera of the magnitude of Joan of Arc. In college, I wrote as a thesis my musical about the educational process, which was my first rock opera. And then from there, I wrote some comedy ones for Improv Boston, but I've never had anything of the scope or this degree of collaboration as Joan of Arc. So it was actually Zoe's dream to make it a rock opera. Joan of Arc was a rock star of her time. She was a larger-than-life character. Her story then needed to be told in a larger-than-life and epic way. If you think about the other stories that have been told as rock operas, like Jesus Christ Superstar or The Who's Tommy, they're all about singular people who had a meteoric rise to fame, gathered a following, and then had some kind of fall. Joan had a similar story arc, and so she needed her story to be told in a similar way. The power of a rock opera really helps to amplify the amount of impact that Joan had.
The lion's claw of England has gripped the flesh of France. The Burgundians of here, my warning late, see them advance.
For genre and style inspirations, I'm in a rock band and I play the guitar. So one of the things that I really wanted to feature in this show was some synthesizers and really make it have that blend of live instruments and the kind of instruments that you'd find in more produced pop music. I also wanted it to have the feel of a soundtrack for a movie, something like you'd see in an action movie like Pirates of the Caribbean or Lord of the Rings. So a lot of my inspiration was to make it have that orchestral driving feel like you'd find in a Hans Zimmer score. Also, in terms of genre influences, I like a lot of different music. So there's moments where some of the story is told through pop punk. There's some moments where the story is told through folk rock. There's even a moment when she gets her armor and everybody's gathering around her where it becomes a gospel song. And that's because every moment in our lives doesn't always have the same feel. It shouldn't have the same genre. So for Joan of Arc, I wanted to make sure that all these different aspects of her personality were represented through music. The wild thing about Born to Do This is that the entirety of the music was pretty much written within the span of a year. I met with Zoe and I talked with her prior to that about her vision, what she wanted for it, but in terms of getting down to putting notes on paper, it was all about a year. So for my process to make it something that was thematically coherent, I started with some of the bigger numbers, like Nobody Parties Like a Bastard and Angels All Around. And I took those bigger numbers and I took the themes from them, and then I had a palette that I could paint the rest of the show with. So I had all of these themes that I could put together in new ways, that I could distort, that I could layer with each other, so that as you're listening to the show, there's a lot of familiarity with all of the different songs and melodies you've heard already, so you know what characters are doing by what the music sounds like. I actually wrote Act 2 in the span of 3 months because I was lucky enough to have all of the big numbers done by then. And so at that point it was just take the themes you have and break them and turn them to chaos as Joan is going to trial. Music can take something that can be dry and a little bit boring, that's a historical event, and turn it into something exciting because you feel all of the undertones of tension in the orchestration and what the melodies are doing. One of my favorite moments in the show is Joan's trial, where we took actual dialogue between her and the people who were putting her on trial for heresy and set it to music. And even though these are just historical accounts of what happened, the music modulates and it gets faster and it gets more chaotic, and you can feel that it's driving towards her inevitable sentence of being burned at the stake. Also, music can really help the action because who doesn't love a big battle scene with brass?
Siege, we are under siege, struck and beaten down, both and hope, burn to the ground.
Yay, faces.
What was my reaction when I learned that I was cast? I was like super excited, but also really nervous. I think Joan of Arc is so iconic that I wanted to make sure I was fulfilling the character for the needs of the company, for the show, for the audience, for all the people who look up to her and love her. So I was very, very excited because I love Joan of Arc, but I was also a little nervous. What has been my preparation process? So I'm a Meisner and Chekhov trained actor. And I take regular voice lessons with my mentor, Noelle Smith. And so it was a lot of researching. I really wanted to know who Joan was. The 100 Years' War is very important, so I did research on that. In Joan of Arc, I also have been like practicing sword fighting at home with a stick because I think it's really important to have that kind of feeling in your body to understand how someone who walks and fought like that did. You want to be able to have it in your own body so that when you're portraying that person on stage, even if you might not be Viggo Mortensen and like the most accomplished person to pick up a sword on a set, you still look like you know what you're doing and you yourself feel the truth of what you're doing. And then just vocal prep, it's another vocally challenging show. So I work very closely with my vocal teacher and mentor to make sure that I'm carrying the show in a healthy way and also able to like belt the absolute roof off of Born to Do This. I'm really excited to be a part. I think I really love playing strong female characters because they're so needed right now. I think last year was a tough year for a lot of women, and to be able to play a character who said, no, I'm not going to take it, and I am going to stand up for what is right, feels really great, and it feels like the right place and the right time to be doing this musical in this part.
Liza Giangrande taking on the role of Joan of Arc was a huge accomplishment because it was a very physical role. She practiced everything from fancy sword fighting to being able to do stage combat, and also take moments where she's in deep contemplation of thoughts and how she's going to pray or get past so many challenges that she was up against. So it was a beautiful experience to watch her develop the role, and I'm glad I had that. I know she really brought it to life.
I think that probably the first show that would prepare me for this was when we did Jesus Christ Superstar and Miss Saigon. I always say it's sort of a combination of those two, with the battles and the outside forces of God and angels. How are we bringing it to life? I think it's the combination of the interpretation of Zoe being in the room, having written it, along with the actors portraying the characters, and then trying to make them move and recreate the feeling that Zoe created, Zoe and Michael and Mel created with the music also. My process is to read what the intention is by the authors, and then to try to recreate it with the actors in front of you. And usually once they start moving, then like these sparks of inspiration happen that take you by surprise. And like, for example, the moment when the small Joan had to die, all of a sudden I had a flash of the movie Ghost, how the dead bodies came out of the ground. And I said, oh, let's try that, and we kept that. So it's, as it happens, you get inspiration.
At court. How can you party with royalty? You don't know how to use a fork. Here, let me show you. You hold it like this.
This is my first time working on something totally new, so it was kind of a new challenge not having any kind of reference to work with. Normally when I'm doing a show, I'll listen to the soundtrack a million times so I really know the music before going into rehearsals. So because this is a totally original new work, it was a lot of spending time outside of rehearsal, making sure I really know the music, learning it, learning every voice part on my own so that when I could get into the rehearsal, I could make sure that I was comfortable teaching it to everyone in the ensemble and all the solo parts and everything like that. So it was very, very challenging and different from what I'm used to, but exciting.
Originating a role, it's pretty daunting, especially like where I'm coming from. Like I haven't done a musical in like 4 years. So it's been really interesting time to brush up on my acting chops and sort of getting my skills back to where they were, on top of it being the world premiere of an original show. Like it's a little bit high pressure, but it's just been awesome to step into this role and bring it to life for the first time. Probably for me, the most exciting thing about this process has just been working with my fellow actors and crew members. They are so talented, they are so inspiring, and it's been just an honor to share the stage with them and to come up with little character bits with them. Like we have scenes where we're interacting with each other, like in the background. Like I'll go and like wake somebody up, and then I'll go like swing my sword at somebody. Like it's just been a lot of fun, like building character, especially ensemble. I feel like that's very important to not just fill in the background, but to sort of build your own character, build your own narrative. And it's just been amazing to have the opportunity to do that. Definitely the challenges for this, just not really knowing what's next. Because when you do an established show, you kind of have an idea of what you're going for. You have an idea of like what the show is supposed to be. But when you're jumping into an original work, you have no idea what's going on. Like the amount of times that we just were like coming up with stuff on the fly because, you know, we're all just figuring it out as we go. It's a little scary, but, you know, the show's really come together, and, you know, I'm just so excited for people to see it.
As you receive the body of our Lord, swaggering to the altar, dressed in men's clothes with a sword.
The voices of my angels told me how I should dress. So if my Lord commands it, what is there to confess?
It is really hard to describe on how to originate a role in the show because this is also my first time doing it. But one of the things that I can say is that you truly get the most freedom that you could have gotten with, say, a role that's been written and played the same way 1,000 times. What's exciting about the process is that you get to learn brand new music that none of the world has ever heard before, and it's truly, truly fascinating that you get to sing something that no one else has heard ever before in their life.
A Sitzprobe comes from German, back when operas were really big. It means literally sitting rehearsal. It's the first rehearsal when the orchestra comes in and the cast just sits on stage and sings through all the music for the first time. The purpose is really so that you can start to line everything up, because up until this point, all they've had is me playing the piano part. So this is the first time that they'll really be able to hear the beautiful new orchestrations that our amazing orchestrator Jerry Sykes put together, and we can fix any issues or things that come up, lining everything all together and just making it all work for the first time.
I'm mentally preparing for tonight by zenning out. I just finished up my meditating. After I got into costume, I did my makeup. I painted my nails before the show. I just look to things that are going to calm me down so that I can give all that energy out on stage when I need to.
So how I'm preparing for opening night mentally is I'm just not thinking about it. I find that as an actor, if I think too much about what I'm getting into and like what the audience is gonna see, it can kind of cripple me. So I just am kind of going in like, we're just doing the same show that we did yesterday. We're showing everybody what we worked on. And you know, sometimes it's good to not even acknowledge the audience. Just like, it's just a rehearsal. And you know, sometimes with the stage lights, you can't even tell anyway.
And sometimes it's really hard to get a cast excited about a new work. And it's not because, like, it sucks. It's because it's hard to learn a new show. You're all flying blind when you go into that show. And the fact that all of you took a gamble and decided to come out and audition for this work, and that you're so talented, and every single one of you just has made this show beyond my wildest dreams.
Yes,
like, you're so much better than my computer playing back there. I'm so honored that every single one of you chose to spend your time doing Born to Do This.
Yes.
Because I know that it's a lot of time to rehearse an entire sung-through rock opera. Yeah. It's more work than your average musical.
For sure.
And from what I've seen so far, I'm impressed as hell.
Woo! One more story. Some of you know Jordy. Some of you will just hear about Jordy. But Jordy was Zoe's partner in crime. They created the company theater, and I could tell you talk forever about that. She was my wife. Well, it will be 40 years this August that we would have been together. The tradition we're keeping is we'll say after the warm-up, go bring your sock, which means get your last chance to pee. When you bring your sock to the her grandparents were very religious, and they would go to like Bible revivals and stuff.
Revivals, yeah, they're holy rollers.
So her grandmother would say, honey, did you bring your sock? So we have that sock up there that says bring your sock.
Yeah.
So that's what you're going to hear, and that's what that means.
Yes. Love and pride, have a wonderful
I think the most rewarding part of this process has been watching the cast grow. This started just with a couple of workshops that the composer, Melissa, had done with a few people, and then bringing it into auditions. And even just, if I compare the first rehearsal to where we are now in the process, the cast coming in being kind of timid about, a new work and a little unsure, and then watching everyone really grow into their individual parts and developing these characters and really owning the music and the choreography and the blocking and staging. It's been really cool to watch all of that happen, and I feel really lucky to have been part of that process.
And now I place the crown with a thorn from the one on the Lord's brow. You memorize and greet the kingdom. Yours a shepherd now. Corona gloria et pietatis te coronet. It's your day, it's your day. Amen.
As Born to Do This, the Joan of Arc rock opera opened, I was amazed and overwhelmed at how well it came together, only because, it's something that you're so close to, you're not sure how it's going to be received. And when that audience started cheering, I was like, wow, we're on to something here. The audience was highly receptive. They were cheering, laughing, and on board with her story. Many people don't even know about her story, and it's so compelling.
And the shield of faith, not too heavy for me. This moment, it seems, is even better than my dream.
It turned out 300 times better than I thought it was going to. I was so nervous about recreating it and fulfilling the ideas of Zoe, Mel, and Michael, and would I be able to achieve what they had in their heads? And it worked out so much better. And the audience's response was what made you feel so satisfied. They loved it. Everyone that came loved it. So that's what was so rewarding, that all that hard work, and then people enjoyed it too. It was great.
I'm really proud of the work I put into this, and Zoe and Sally and Melissa and Michael and everyone else who worked on this put into it, and the cast. I think the turnout was great, and yeah, every show, I just loved the energy on that stage. I think it was just a huge success, and I hope it's something that lives on and maybe gets picked up again and done somewhere else, or we do it again in the future or something. It's been really awesome.
I've got your back too. With us, fresh is born new. In my armor, I'm ready to start. It does more than protect my heart. It lights up my soul.
After the show closed, I was incredibly grateful for the talent that came out to be in an original work. I've done a couple of original musicals before, and sometimes people are scared to take a gamble on a new work. Sometimes, without listening to something ahead of time, they're not sure if they want to audition for it. But we had the perfect Joan for our Born to Do This. Liza was powerful and charismatic, but also had moments of vulnerability, and she could sing her face off. So I was incredibly grateful for her and all of the cast members who took a chance on this new work. I also did not expect to have the show elevated to the place it was by the orchestrations done by Jerry Sykes. It felt like a polished Broadway show in a way that was beyond my wildest dreams. She just took every nuance of my themes and put them in instruments that made them pop, made them shine, made them highlight the emotional moment in an impressive and new way.
The belt of truth, the righteous faith, salvation's sound, the shield of faith. The belt of truth, the righteous faith, salvation's sound, the shield of faith. The belt of truth, the righteous faith, who's chosen me to be with the sword of the Spirit.
I also really think that this show has legs. It's got so many themes that are really important in our world right now. We've got themes of feminism and of women getting into power, and even some themes for the LGBTQIA community. And the show does a really good job of handling those themes with a historical figure. It's not beating people over the head with them, but it's presenting them in a way that makes them exciting and new, despite the fact that the story is a couple hundred years old. So I really would love to see this show get put up someplace else in the hands of somebody who understands those thematic elements.
Now that we've gone through the entire process, it's a production that we're so proud of and we hope has a life beyond this. And we're pursuing companies that can produce the show again. And we have an incredible recording and a video production that's wonderful to watch and listen to. And I still wake up in the morning humming all of the songs, usually a different song every morning.
I feel it has a life beyond Norwell for sure. I know it spoke to so many people. There are people who are asking for the soundtrack. There are people who wish they could see it again. We had a couple people who saw it 3, 4, even 5 times because they couldn't get enough of it. What kind of a compliment is that? So I know it has a life that will go beyond here, and we like to see it produced professionally. So onward is what we're going to do.